good at Mario Kart?
You did.
You did.
You did the first time playing this one twice in a row. Now my turn.
Looks like it.
Good example, I can be a winner and a loser at the same time.
All right, you ready to knock this out?
Yes, sir.
Who is this like their last class?
I'm right after you. I have a 7:45 Kennedy.
Maybe,
I'm all good class
my
tomorrow.
son just texted me. "Can you pick me up at the class?"
Tell me the bike home.
Change management today. Who's this guy?
The airport in Milwaukee is named after him, right? No.
He probably eats cranberries too.
Yeah, Mitchell.
Colonel Mitchell, is he good? Is he good with change?
He wanted change, but they wouldn't let it change.
They didn't?
I
Not
don't know.
at first, they like removed
We're
him.
wearing the uniforms of the United States Air Force, so apparently something happened.
After they kicked him out, because people can't handle
Court martial,
Wisconsin.
didn't
Yeah. They were like, "You're
Come
crazy
on, you
talking
all
about
went to
planes."
201. Tell me about Billy Mitchell.
He's from Wisconsin, the best state.
Was that one of your fun facts as a trainer?
Yeah.
Should have been.
Yeah, he said
It
the
wasn't.
father of the Air Force, Billy Mitchell, is born in, yes. Yeah. And I said, "You're welcome" to all of them.
What did he do? How was he the father of the Air Force?
He said, oh, no.
He was the primary advocate for the initial primary advocate for the separated Air Force.
So we had an Army and a Navy, right? And how did they want to use air power? In a supporting role. So, right? And General Mitchell came along and said, wait a minute, we can do better than this. In fact, the Air Force can really lead the charge. Right? So, did that have anything to do with how he got in trouble?
There was a ship was sunk, and he blamed that ship as what's lost, or happened to the Navy commander. Naval commanders in charge and said they used negligence with air power. And that.
So he really got in trouble by running his mouth with senior leadership, right? Not necessarily with advocating for air power. It was just, he rubbed some people wrong. But good example of change management, right? Someone saw, had great vision, something that no one at that time was really looking at releasing the States for the Army and the Navy. And he was able to, albeit not maybe in the nicest way all the time, walk this country into understanding the significance of air power as a separate service. Yeah, that's a good job. Other than the court. All right, samples of behavior we're looking for. Explain that change equals effort over time. Lewin's force field analysis. Barriers to change. 5 key strategies. Maybe we knock this out. We'll see. All right. Change equals effort over time. 4 phases of this. The first phase, just like any phase with change, is an excitement, right? Or you as the leader, maybe you want to have it as an excitement phase. Because if you're not excited about it, it ain't happening. I'll tell you that right now. Always got to be careful of this. Don't overemphasize that positive and forget to tell people about that positive. Has anyone had anyone do that to them? Or seen that happen? Or they're so excited about change that's going to happen. They don't really promote what it's are. Steve?
At the beginning of graduate for band, we kind of had to push the positive to the new freshmen and kind of.
Yeah, but they know there's hard work, don't they?
Not so much.
Not so
A lot
much,
of them
not yet.
They think it's just marching, and there was one person who last week was like, "Oh, is there going to be any running, or is it just marching?"
You don't tell them about the heat stroke. That's extra. Who are my dominators? Who is there anyone in this room who likes change for change? Who just changes things just to you do? No, I don't. That drives me nuts. The conscientious ones in the room. Man, if it ain't broke, let's leave it. It's good. So again, we see different individuals with different characteristics where change for some, man, I always want to be changing. While others are like, hey, this is not good. So you got to figure out the best way to do that. Got to be excited, but you got to make sure that that hard work piece is emphasized as well. That hard work phase, you're building new habits and patterns. There's that big delta there. There's a lot of change in this phase until we get to that turning point phase where it starts to become more of an accepted process, and finally the institutionalized phase where it is that new process. You now have this new policy in effect. Everybody's used to it, and it's just like you never had that before, right? An example that I think of with this one is our PT program, right? When you all came in as freshmen, and we hype it up, right? And we're like, hey, we're number one on the nation. You're like, sweet, I want to be number one on the nation. Sometimes we downplay this, right? It's no problem. Just come along with us. This will be fun. Hard work phase. Start doing those 2 to 3 workouts a week, and you're like, who had overuse injuries when they started? Yeah, a lot of people, right? And it wasn't that you were out of shape, it was just that maybe you never did all that running, all those calories. It's challenging. And then, but eventually, you got to this turning point, right, where, yeah, this was really hard, but you started to kind of get used to it. It wasn't a full-fledged habit yet, but you were starting to accept it. You started to see change, and you were like, man, maybe I can do this. And then all of a sudden, you're like 200 years or now 300 years, and you just hit it, right? I know what it's going to be like. It's not going to feel great, but I can do it. And it's part of your habit now. You know how to do it. And you know how to come back to this excitement phase and get the yeah. Anybody else have an example? I don't want to go into the exact arithmetic of the effort over time. It's like, is that really effort and time? Yeah, whatever. More faith. All right. Next one, we're going to talk about Lewin's force field analysis. All right. What does this look like? Does anyone remember seeing this a little bit before?
Stressors.
Yeah. We were talking about stressors and resiliency, right? Pretty similar. The driving forces, restraining forces. I think I put this in just because Nancy was in class. Now you can finish mine. I don't even think this has anything to do with stressors or resiliency. All ear ducts are that big. Force field has been eliminated. So that clip is actually much more appropriate for the unprofessional relationships that we're going to talk about when you guys get back. Yeah, so not like flipping a switch, right? We get rid of the stressors or get rid of those restraining forces. Can't do that. There is a process with it. Fairly simple. We're going to look at our current situation and figure out where we want to go. This third step, I still haven't figured that out. Identify where the current situation will go if no action is taken. It's not going nowhere. Thanks. Get rid of 3. We're going to want to list all our driving forces, list our restraining forces. You're going to look at those forces, make sure they're valid. Can they actually be changed? And figure out which ones are the most critical, which ones you probably need to change first. And then discuss how the change can be effective by changing possibly the strength of some of the forces. So I put an example up on the board, and I'm sure most of your classes now, do most of your textbooks, are they electronic? Half and half?
A lot of them.
75%. In the Air Force, for flyers, we, a few years back, really started to transition to electronic media instead of having paper copies. So if your current situation was that you have all paper textbooks now, right, but the university wants to go, or say your squadron wants to go to ebooks or EPUBs, or however you want to do it, or you're probably using laptops on the fly, right? So 3, took that out. Somebody get up on the board. Let's list some driving and restraining forces. Pros and cons. Princess Buttercup, get up there. It's not Princess Buttercup.
Princess
Peach. Looks much better.
Princess Buttercup is in Princess Bride.
Yes. That's why I like that one the most. Okay, what are some driving forces for ebooks?
Easier to transport multiple ones around.
Transportability. You may be able to read that. Easier to update. Cheaper.
They don't get weathered. Like books can get weathered and paper can get ruined.
More durable.
Yeah, durability.
Less trees.
All right, what are restraining forces? What are some things that we're fighting against it?
Cost of devices.
Oh.
Lack of knowledge in how to use it. Like older people that can't figure out how to use like the keynote. Okay.
Training. A lot of people don't like reading on the screen. But I don't. Who else doesn't like reading on the screen? Me neither. I like feeling paper. I will tell you, when we changed the paper or EPUBs in the squatter, our general knowledge went in the toilet because people stopped reading.
You're limited to a power source. Like it kind of controls like charging and stuff.
Either you have to have the publication downloaded or have access to it.
Especially when we're looking at easier to change that with update pubs. It's just like technical difficulties.
Like not being able to like write, like take notes, like in the margins type of thing.
Alright. Okay. Are all of those forces valid on both sides? Anyone see anything that's not necessarily valid?
These on demo will modify as your string. Like modify or like a downloadable content server as a training one, but as a restraining factor. I'm just confused by that.
Well, if you can't download, say you had an update to a publication, and what if without that publication you couldn't while you're playing a mission? Is it now a restraining factor?
What would the same thing if like there's an update to the book? Like there's, I'm not, like what is it, are we like assuming we already have it or assuming it's on the way?
Well, I think you could look at it both ways. Either you don't have it at all, and class starts tomorrow. Or the example I was giving where it is a document that you have to have to do your mission, and you have to have it updated. You know there's a new update out there, but you can't access it because you're someplace that doesn't have Wi-Fi. So it could be a restraining effect. Yeah. However, maybe it's one of those smaller restraining factors, because as long as you have the initial documentation, you've got something. Okay. Anybody else?
I guess the thing that I said with less trees, that's not really too much of an issue. Because trees are still going to get chopped down and made into paper, regardless of whether or not a couple books are made into online things. And for all we know, the trees that would be made into paper are now just getting used to burn and or to use for making energy to power the devices that are there.
So it may not necessarily be the most valid driver in affecting change in this change.
For the note-taking one, you can, I mean, if you want to go completely paperless, you can take notes, but you can still take notes off the screen if you want to.
Right on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any ones that are more critical than any other ones?
The power source limitation is pretty critical because if you lose power and are off the grid, then there's no way you can have access to that.
Right? What else?
Reading off the screen is a big one too, because if you have the information but everyone refuses to read it off of that medium, then it's not beneficial.
Okay. All right. This is terrible. I quit. I can't quit. can't make them all critical.
The cost.
Which side?
Probably.
You guys are gonna make me start all over. They're all critical.
I don't know if it's critical in sense, but the transportation of it is like I think a big selling factor comparative to like if you have to haul around like a big
Yeah.
book.
Believe me. Yeah, I agree. Okay, there are a lot of them that are critical. And you know, we probably, if we sat down and did, say we're doing an episode 21 of that, we'd probably have twice as long of a list. These are the ones that came up to our in our mind first, right off the bat, right? So they're probably more critical. They're the first things that we think of, and so a lot of them. What about this last one? Can the change can be affected by changing strength of forces? Are there any that we can? Yes, they are drivers or restrainers, but can we do anything to affect maybe their ability to change or their ability to keep us from change? They're still going to be there, but can we potentially either increase the driver to create that change or decrease the restraining factor in order? What's a good one with that potential?
You can deal with a contractor for device cost. You can compete with potential suppliers for devices.
Okay, so maybe you're able to find a cheaper. You were going to start out with iPads, and you find someone else does an e-reader that's half the cost. You're still able to get all the PDFs on it, and it works. Okay.
I was gonna say understanding and training. You can have like a general training session, mandatory for everyone, just like a standardized training session, so everyone knows how to use it right off the bat. So that, like, come down the road, everyone can figure it out,
Okay.
or like
So
have some sort of
maybe
background.
you could make that force smaller by having really strong initial training, and making people less afraid of reading off the screen, showing the benefits of using an e-reader instead of paperwork. Okay. Those are all good. Does all make sense? What did Star Trek? Yeah.
Or if it's just an
Let's say you have a goal you want to achieve, such as galactic peace and overthrowing evil empire. Using Cartoon's force field analysis, you can analyze all aspects of this particular goal, and therefore come up with better ways of helping to achieve this goal.
No. Why not? You. Or do not. There is no track.
Once you select your goal, the next step is to analyze the
You can try that.
Following that,
The little kid that plays that Ewok in the movie also plays Professor Oak.
You don't know the power of the dark side.
Once you've established the various forces that are on both sides of the decision-making process and the change process, you then compare and give some weight to each of these forces. For example, you may have a larger number of forces on one side, but those forces may be small individually, whereas one force on the other side may have a very large impact and needs to be looked at as having more magnitude and more weight than the other ones.
The timeline for all these kids.
In order to affect the change that you're then attempting to put into place, it's time to strategize and look at the forces that are there and come up with ways of either increasing the magnitude of forces on one side or decreasing the magnitude of forces on the other side, either by minimizing individual ones or eliminating ones that may have a significant impact on the overall process. Once that happens, the variable can simply fall away.
Put that down. The shoebox.
I can't understand how we got by those troops. I thought we were dead. Boss, have a strong influence on the weak mind.
So by doing a force-based analysis, you get a better sense of all of the forces on both sides of the decision-making process, both for and against, and it enables you to then selectively choose how to approach making a decision and have more chance at successful outcome.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.
Great. Alright, that brought up one good point when doing the analysis that we didn't cover. Whereas maybe you've got either a driver or a restrainer that is just really significant. And so maybe you need to, after you do the list, you need to maybe rank order them in significance. And that would probably help you determine, with the magnitude. And then it would help you determine which ones you need to kind of decrease or increase to get your desired effect. Yeah? Again? Still you plug it. Destroy it. Okay. These are some of that. I think we got, I think pretty much about all of them. Pushback, technology. Yeah. Pretty good. Alright, barriers to change. We got to, our dominators need to remember that not everyone loves change. There's that element of surprise that will keep people from accepting change. So we got to prepare people for that change. What's a good way to do that? Communicate before you make the change. Yeah, I would say that's probably the best way to do it. What are some other barriers that you might run into? People feeling like they're going to become obsolete, unimportant, especially when you're dealing with civilians. Hate to say it, but they are great continuity, but that's annoying. They don't want to lose their stapler. And if you start changing things, they'll feel like they're going to lose their stapler, and they are not happy about it, and they can make your life living out. Inertia? How fast do you think change happens in the Air Force? Like turning the Titanic around, right? Takes a while. So you can't get frustrated with that either. You're used to change happening relatively fast in your own personal life. It just doesn't happen that way in the Air Force. It doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job. But honestly, things you might implement in your job, you may never see the outcome because you're moved before the final outcome happens. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, but do change for good. Job security, same thing, kind of get on with this. And certainly you can have personality conflicts where maybe someone thinks you're doing change to highlight yourself, and they don't like that, or maybe they just don't like you. Or they just don't like that change idea. So that's a personality conflict. And we always have the bots. No cat videos. Sorry, Andrew.
What do you do then in that? You take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers. Yes, that's right. Well, then I just have to ask, why would the customers just take them directly to the software people? Well, I'll tell you why. Because engineers are not good at dealing with customers. So you physically take the specs from the customer? Well, no, my secretary does that, or the client. So then you must physically bring them to the software people. Well, I mean, sometimes. What would you say to do here? Look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers, so those engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
I love them.
I thought it's a fear of mine. I went out of town with, there you go. See, I had these fears. Fear of becoming obsolete or unimportant in the group. Strategies to achieve change. Like Steven talked about. Yeah, communicate. You can do so much better in achieving change just by setting the battlefield, right? By communicating change before it ever happens. To get feedback. So you know, ooh, maybe this person I'm going to have to work with a little bit differently to get this change into effect. Set that battlefield. We've talked a lot about participation. The more buy-in that you can get, the more that you get your airmen involved in the change so that they feel like they have a part in it. Like they are the ones that came up with the idea. Your change is going to go incredibly smoother. It's going to go faster, and you're going to have a greater outcome than you could have assumed in the first place. Behavior modification. You might have to, is that a fast thing or a slow thing? Behavior modification.
Depends on what you're modifying, but typically.
It depends on, if you're using shock therapy, it's probably going to be pretty fast. But behavior modification is probably going to be fairly slow. And that's just personal instincts, right? You're going to have to work with those individuals. Social discipline. You can always do this, right? Sometimes we got to do this. If it's got to get done now, it's got to get done now. We're changing. This is how we're doing it. And go with it. Now, anytime, you may have to do that right now, but maybe after whatever crisis is going on, go back and say, hey, this is why we had to do that. Go back to that communication piece so that everybody understands why you had to mandate that change right away. Time allowance depends on how big the change is, depends on how big the organization is. Right? And finally, group dynamics will always have. My guess is you as a group could probably change fairly fast. You've been together for 2+ years now. You know strengths and weaknesses of each individual. You have a good feel as a group. You're a team. But the freshmen, to get them to change, is probably not as easy. Right? Now, I say that, but when the freshmen come in, talking group dynamics, is it easy to get them to do something? They have no idea, right? You could tell them to quack like a duck. That's what we do in the Air Force, and they start quacking, right? It's not right. But they are a group in that way that they're like herd mentality. Real easy. I can tell you all to quack like a duck, you might, because I saw you playing. But there's some of you are going to dissent. You're going to be, really, a duck? I much prefer moving. So, a little bit different. I think we hit all these just well. Did you ever see slides so fast? Steps to supporting change. Again, the top one. What's the top one? Communicate. Absolutely. Establish those guidelines. Make sure people know what the framework is, what they're working within. Encourage participation. Buy-in. Give that team authority to make the decisions so that it's their change that they are enacting and they are a part of. Important to list the benefits of the change? Of course. If you don't list the benefits of the change, why do you want to change that? There's no benefit. You're going to have to give them reasons. Give them the positive reasons. make sure it actually happens at the end. If you give them those positive reasons for why we're doing this change, and none of them materialize, what do you think your airmen are going to say? No. Right? You're never going to get to that final institutionalized phase where everyone accepts it as a new habit. And then finally, provide that education and training where needed, like we were talking about with the keynote creators. Okay. As always, be flexible, be open to new ideas. We do not, have the market counter ideas. Some people, everybody has feelings. And reward a job well done, gold stars, lollipops, some extra time on Mario Kart. Would you really use that if you're done? It's a turkey. It took me a while to figure that out. So, since most of y'all are, Sarah, you look confused.
I'm always confused.
That's a turkey wrapped in bacon, and I thought that was beautiful. That's the flag of turkey, and I don't know. Turkey. So, since all of you are probably going home, and you're going to be with family and possibly older people.
What's gonna come next to you?
Anybody can yell out the answers if they know it. Oh, that's a good grandma. There it is. Now you got the list. Anybody have anything for the group? Have a lovely and safe Thanksgiving holiday. Enjoy the time off. Get some well-deserved sleep. And be ready to come back and rock it. It goes quick. You know how the end of the semester comes after Thanksgiving, and it is fast and furious. Yeah.